Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World episode 90. Yes, 90. I'm your host, John Jordan, and joining me for this episode is Mike Weitzner of Pocketful of Quarters. How's it going, Mike?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. You've been one of these kind of actually blockchain projects been around for a while. You're not one of these Johnny-come-lately NFT kind of projects, so it's kind of good to, I think, chat a little bit about how you've kind of come up with a vision of what you wanted to do and how that kind of vision is progressing and becoming some sort of reality. But before we get too caught up in the details of what you're doing with Pocketful of Quarters, I think it's always good to get a bit of an idea of kind of the individual and how you sort of got into blockchain and crypto. Of course, that may be the same as you creating the project, but can you give us a bit of a kind of maybe a potted history about what you've been up to, maybe a bit before blockchain as well, and then how you kind of fell into this, still slightly strange technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a 20 plus year veteran in the digital space. I've been an entrepreneur or investor in companies that reach tens of millions of people worth over $1 billion, and I've been especially interested in what I call platform businesses, and what that means in many cases that's like marketplaces. But it's any business where sort of the growth is inherent in the product, itself, like a messaging platform and social platforms, as well as as marketplaces. So to kind of put that into the blockchain, I have a technical background, computer science degree, and I was running a tech team, and I was trying to hire somebody in 2010, 11, and I loved him, and he was telling me about what else he was thinking about doing, and I ended up not getting him. He was starting, what was an exchange for Bitcoin, and that was the first time I found out about the white paper, and I thought about it, and I didn't fully get everything. I was a little bit, nervous. The crypto anarchist aspect of it kind of put me off a little bit. And then a couple of years later, another friend had invested in it and made a little bit of money in Bitcoin, and in 2013, and it made me go back and ask me some questions, and I found out about colored coins. And and so colored coins, and actually now with NFTs, you're talking about this. I made a business plan, and I actually coded up some colored coin projects to issue game assets. And so I thought a little bit about that, but it was really clunky and unusable, and I did buy a small amount of Bitcoin in order to do that project, but really more as a technologist than as an investor. And it was a curiosity. And then it wasn't really until 2017 when the blockchain Bitcoin came back onto my radar, when now, I live in Greenwich, Connecticut, and my friends run large hedge funds and private equity companies. And all of a sudden they're like, wait, you must know about Bitcoin. And I said, well, I do. And when I looked, and this time, then there was Ethereum. And then when I saw the Ethereum in the ecosystem, I said, this is starting to, be the kind of infrastructure. Really, at that point, that was when I had that moment of this really could take over the world. This is really important. I had been in the process of starting a second fund to invest in platform companies when then my whole journey got disrupted. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that, when I had kind of an unusual way that a Pocketful of Quarters got started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It is, I think, certainly for people on the sort of gaming side, it does seem to be, they kind of dip their toes a little bit, or as technologists got interested in Bitcoin for just for its own reasons, but then we're kind of, lots of people kind of had it sort of bubbling in the background. They were kind of waiting for it to, could you do any game stuff with it? People tried and you couldn't really, and it really seemed to be that point in 2017 seems to be for lots of people, where the point where they actually realized, this is actually, Ethereum to some degree is the Bitcoin we can do things with, a bit more useful, and that really seems to have been this kind of spark for a lot of people. So, so you mentioned kind of Pocketful of Quarters, and I guess it's famous for the kind of the kind of Genesis kind of vision, which is kind of around your son. So I guess that's Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So for the second fund, I wanted to do a blockchain focused fund, and so of course I was talking to everybody, my investors and portfolio companies, and of course, one day my son, when I was driving home from school, and when I explained how cryptocurrency worked, he immediately applied it to his own life and said that his biggest problem was not getting credit for the time and effort, coins that he had bought or earned in games. He was in the process of switching. It was 11, almost 12, switching from Madden Mobile to Fortnite, and so why can't I get credit? Why can't I transfer it over? And I said, although I had actually started like a video game company when I was in high school, I was a programmer, and I hadn't really been in the video game industry, for decades. I didn't really know why. So that's a curious problem. Let's do a little more. So together as a side project, we sort of came up with and decided on how to create an ERC20 token called Quarters. And I took him to a meetup in early 2018. And he went completely viral. And people were very interested in this sort of 12-year-old who had come up with this idea to change the video game industry. And really, despite having incredible investments and some really good successes as an entrepreneur, I'd never seen the market respond like it did when it heard his idea. This problem of video virtual currency fragmentation, like premium video game, not Bitcoin or like the other things, that really struck a chord. And Tim Draper reached out and invested, and Michelle Phan, the founder of Epsi, reached out and invested, and in the video game industry even reached out, because to me that was a bit of a surprise. I think you can clearly see that why a kid like George would be frustrated not being able to move his money around. But then the question is like, why would video game companies care? And so when Chris Cross, the original game designer for Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, that had a mobile at Nexon, and creative director at THQ, he reached out and he said when he was at Nexon that he had led an effort to get a single coin, a Nexon coin, and he was able to at least get it all branded the same, but he wasn't able to actually get MapleStory 1 coin to be used, if it's bought in MapleStory 1, to be used in MapleStory 2. And that, as a game designer and a video game executive, he thought that this solved a real problem, and that the ability to audit and figure out transfer pricing on the blockchain was really the missing piece. That was why he couldn't complete the project that he really wanted to do at Nexon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good point. It is, I mean, it's kind of, I guess anyone in the industry would kind of have I think generally the view would be, well, of course, why would we want people to be able to move assets around between games? That's great for the one game that everyone plays, i.e. Fortnite. That's terrible for all the other games who everything gets sucked out of. And I guess as you allude to there, technically it is incredibly difficult to balance all these things, because some of these games have been going for 20 years and people have millions of coins in there, and some of them being just launched yesterday and people have thousands of coins. So you can kind of see why it is a very difficult subject. But it's also interesting. I think when I first kind of started to understand cryptocurrencies, from a gaming background, I kind of thought, well, why wouldn't games companies want to basically own their own bank? Because effectively that's what it allows them to do by using a cryptocurrency. But even now, I would say, apart from some particular individuals, still a handful, I would say, the traditional games companies have at least publicly been very either at best cautious, at worst quite negative about blockchain. So have you kind of felt over the last kind of couple of years, when you've been trying to get this off the ground, that has anyone from any kind of major companies officially spoken to you, or has it more been like kind of individuals who have kind of thought it was a cool idea?
No, there's definitely been a sea change, and I think this is really some of the beauty of having a smart kid come up with an idea, is that just because there's vested interests or biases and everything against it, if it's a good idea and it's time to come to fruition, then being smart and tenacious is really really valuable. And I think that what we've seen is the predatory nature of some video games, where I mean, I like to think of it like as a parent, like even, you'll do lots of things for kids. You'll take them, to the bowling alley and give every kid $20 to play video games. And yet when they come and they say, I want to do a 99-cent purchase, you're like, absolutely not, no way. Like it's like, you just know that the mobile games are predatory. And yet, but at the same time, you can appreciate it's worth paying for entertainment, for certain unique and social experiences. So I think there's just, I think things like Fortnite and Roblox have really, opened up, the executive minds. The stock values of the public game companies is crappy. Like, even though COVID's been this massive boom for the industry, it's seen as like a one-time gain as opposed to like a secular shift in people playing more games, because all the games are run like runoff businesses. When your business model is like, my customers' breakage is my profit, you're losing. Like, the game is about the players. And so between sticks and carrots, the game industry is really starting to realize. And then there's other things, unforeseen things like IFDA going away, both that reduces the ability to monetize games, as well as it makes it even more expensive to acquire customers, with millions of, currencies and games out there, with the costs of acquisition skyrocketing and retention rates plummeting, that's all symptoms of the same problem that George found. And the solution for all of them is to have some sort of consolidation of virtual currencies. I mean, right now, it's a bit like if you went to a Starbucks and you bought a coffee and they would only give you change in a prepaid Starbucks card. But worse than that, that Starbucks card only worked in the one location that you bought that cup of coffee. I mean, that's the way the video game industry works today. It's incredibly unplayer, unconsumer friendly. And we're just at a time when, like, now the executives realize this because it's affecting their stock price. It's affecting, the business, the things they care about. Zynga wants to reduce its marketing spend to make it more efficient. Everybody else wants to increase their lifetime value. So, it's a CEO level problem that we're addressing now.
It is interesting going back to, you talking about your kind of your experience in running sort of platform businesses, because I guess what we have seen over the last couple of years is it has been some of these platform games, I guess you could say, not in platformers, but platforms like Roblox and Fortnite, which have the ability, certainly Roblox, Minecraft as well, have the ability for people to create multiple sorts of games in there and have their own kind of platform-wide currency that actually have seen, a extra large kind of growth, and so you can kind of start to get the idea of how something like a cryptocurrency kind of wide currency for games would work. Although I think there are still these massive problems about even within companies, let alone kind of intra-company kind of systems of how that would work. But let's focus a bit on. Go ahead.
About the Roblox is super interesting, because not coming from the gaming industry, like, Roblox wasn't on my radar when we started. But if you compare our initial white paper from 3 years ago to the Roblox S1, we perfectly predict the entire business for Roblox. Now they're ahead, so it's like, what does it look like when you flash forward? That's really cool. The idea of a single currency, paying out developers based on the usage. It's all, and even like the way, other things about how they can trade Roblox for marketing. It's like all of the concepts are in the white paper, but there's one difference in the S1 and our white paper. It says, and it's on the first page, it says, we have a commitment to one app and one brand. And we think that same power for Roblox could be brought to all different app engines and all different apps. And it's like they've built Disneyland, and Disneyland is terrific, but it's still just a piece of all of entertainment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think in some ways, kind of Roblox is an interesting kind of counter narrative to kind of blockchain, because they built it all obviously on centralized servers. So they have kind of all the benefits for the consumer of having a kind of a currency that you can use on the platform, that you can take off the platform and put into your bank account. Obviously, they have to go through kind of legacy banking kind of friction to do that. But obviously, people are earning, a few people at least are earning thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year by building things in Roblox. So in a sense, that to me, they've kind of proven the kind of the concept of cryptocurrency working, but they've done it without cryptocurrency. So maybe we don't need cryptocurrencies for these things. Who knows? I mean, I think we do, but In terms of kind of where you guys are going now, because obviously there's something like Roblox that works because they've built a big enough platform, and people are coming to them and building games within that platform. It worked with Fortnite because Fortnite was Epic Games, who were one of the most famous games companies who had great experience, great tech, and they kind of lucked out a little bit in having this massive hit. So they've done it by building massive scale. You guys as being a fairly small kind of outfit with a strong vision. How can do you think you can build out a platform, or do you think do you think you can attract developers to use your currency? At the moment, you're going for more of an esports kind of entry. So I mean, how does that all kind of play out for you?
Yeah, so we've got two different approaches. I'll start with the one that's in market because that's easier to follow and understand. So again, going to George, the if you build it, they will come, was like, okay, now we have the cryptocurrency, how we're going to use it. And he said, well, the way everybody finds out about things is through streamers. And so, and what they want to do is they want to compete and learn and get better. And so, we created POQGG, which is a platform for creators to host tournaments. And you use quarters in order to enter the tournament. And it's also the prizing currency. So it's also like the tickets that you get at Chuck E. Cheese. So you can go and get things in the prize store. And we have 350,000 players on our platform. It's growing super rapidly, more than 30% per month. I mean, basically, started with Fortnite, but then, immediately, the Minecraft and the Call of Duty and the Roblox, influencers wanted to come on board, and, spread from the US to the UK, and then now we're in Spanish and Turkish, because other people in Europe were using it. So it's like one of these things. It's the creators on our platform are growing 10 to 100 times bigger because they flipped their proposition from watch me play to come play with me. And so this is hitting a real spot within the sort of competitive gaming community. So that's who we have as our initial users for quarters.
And in terms of another kind of, I guess within the blockchain space at least, that you did kind of quite, that was quite well known, I suppose, not probably outside the scene, but you guys actually got a letter from the SEC. You were one of the first tokens to do that, which basically said you weren't a security at the time. Everyone was very worried about whether Ethereum was a security or whether things were securities, and people were getting sued. And you got a letter saying you weren't, but then that also tends to come with restrictions about how you kind of handle your currency. So can you talk a little bit about the quarters as a cryptocurrency? I think you're on Ethereum. You may be moving to Matic as well, but can you just kind of fill a bit in on that?
I'll take you through that. So we're not a cryptocurrency. We're an arcade token on the blockchain.
Right. Okay.
And what that means is, with an arcade token, the Chuck E. Cheese token is prepaid entertainment. Like you buy it and then later you use it. And because of that, it can have a flexible supply and it can have a constant price. You don't worry about what the price of Chuck E. Cheese tokens are when you go take your kids to go play. So that and the regulatory requirement was really important, because in order to be able to sell the tokens with credit cards and get Apple and Google to partner with us, and really in the video game industries, because as you said, blockchain crypto is very polarizing. You need to have a flag that says you're pure as driven snow, because George, if we're here to solve George and his friends' problems, like it needs to be available, in easy, convenient ways for kids in the United States and around the world. And so that was really important. And you're right, there are, compared to, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, there's restrictions. I think from our perspective, they don't really matter, because our real competitive set are things like V-Bucks and Clash of Clans gems and things like that, which already are restricted, right? You can buy them. You can't sell your V-Bucks to your friend. You can't transfer them. So like the restrictions that we put into our token are in fact the exact, or are the requirements to be a virtual currency. And so effectively the novel part was going to them and saying, look, if it's a virtual if Chuck E. Cheese tokens are okay in Chuck E. Cheese, they're also okay if you put them on the blockchain. And a year and a half of brain damage later, they agreed.
And so at the moment, when people are buying the quarters, for a standard kind of fiat kind of gateway, and then I guess, are they sitting in like a custodial wallet that you're sort of handling all that sort of side for them, and they just use them as
Yeah, it's just as easy as, like, they don't know that it's on the blockchain, but they do have hot wallets, which means, when they want to get Bitcoin or NFTs or anything like that, they're enabled. Everything they need for the metaverse is there. But our idea is the entryway should be the on-ramp should have no barriers. And that's also great, right? Kids can own this. Kids can't have PayPal accounts. One of the unexpected or drivers of adoption has been that kids would prefer to have kids and foreigners prefer to have quarters than they do to have money. And that sounds kind of crazy, but the reason is because they can go to the prize store and they can get V-Bucks, because what they really want is the backpack. And if they get money, they need first to convince their parents to get the money, and then to convince their parents to let them spend the money. And with us, they can win a tournament and get the backpack and skip the parent.
Yeah, no, it's kind of it's quite interesting when I guess you spend any time in blockchain and crypto, you have to start learning about kind of economics and monetary theory and how people view money. But it is quite an interesting way that you could, I think in general, that kind of cryptocurrencies can be quite a force for positive in the sense that the way they allow value to be transferred in a much more kind of seamless way. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but in a much more kind of logical way, that you can do this sort of time for value and then transfer that value to the thing you want. In some ways, kind of easier than you can do with fiat currency, particularly if you're not in the West, where our banking systems are good and everyone's got banks and everyone can use credit cards. Clearly, that's a minority of people in the world. So it's kind of more generally, I think it would be interesting in gaming in when we are kind of sort of leveling up the playing field globally and allowing people in other countries to use their time. They may be equally as good skilled players technically as any of us in the West, and they can start earning what will for them be an equally an even larger amount of value than we can maybe earn, because they're in different territories. So that's interesting. So that's kind of where you're at the moment. Go ahead.
And that, by the way, is the story of Turkey, right?
Yeah.
Turkey has its own currency, lira, and it's super painful for them to do anything, but they love video games, and so and I think that'll be so we're seeing like unexpected success based based on that.
It's interesting. Yeah, the Turkish lira has gone down 15% in the last week. So you may have a big influx continuing from Turkey. But it is interesting, isn't it, that effectively we're in the games business, making games for people to have fun with. But then there are these very real world economic kind of concepts and very impacts that games can have now. And I think that's both testament to games and blockchain and this kind of more. The world is becoming much smaller, and blockchains and cryptocurrencies are allowing that in a way that previously, nation states wouldn't have allowed. So for me, that's all positive. Let
me add. That's a really good point. Just to extend it a little bit, every single country in the world has basically carve outs and extensions for video game currencies. So we had to go through this whole thing with the SEC, but effectively because of that, then we don't have to worry about like breaking people's laws and things like that. So for the most part, I mean, I think China might be different. There's a couple of little examples, but it's when you think about trying to drive blockchain adoption like this, doing a compliant video game strategy is probably the best way to get billions of people involved with blockchain.
Mm-hmm. So you spoke about your esports was kind of the strategy that was kind of happening now. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the kind of the strategy that will be happening at some point in the future, not now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So look, this was a COVID curveball. So we were planning on launching this going into GDC last year, but when everything got shut down, we focused on the esports side, which turned out to be great because everybody had a lot more time to sit in their basement playing Fortnite. But so we have another product that we're launching called CoinForge. And it's kind of interesting because like in the beginning, I thought we have this great technology and like, why would we sell guns and ammo to our enemies? Like we can get all the industry on the platform. And my son George said, no, that doesn't make any sense. My original problem, remember, was to go from Madden to Fortnite, and we could never get there. It's decades away for them to adopt quarters. So what we need to do is we need to white label it. It's called CoinForge, and quarters will be the reserve currency. And what that really means is that today you can switch from Madden to 2K, NBA 2K, but there's 100% tariff. You have to abandon everything,
Yeah.
and you can go play the other game. And that's the way it is between all the millions of games. And so what's really going to happen is that the various publishers are going to have their own currencies to help keep people within their own networks. And that's going to be a big boon for players, because they're going to at least be able to get some credit when they go from Madden 20 to Madden 21, because EA doesn't want you to go to 2K. Right now, they're really at risk. I mean, like, after 2 years of playing Madden, am I going to have to buy the new one? Why? Maybe I'll just switch to 2K for something completely, NBA 2K, to do something completely different. But eventually they'll say, well, you know what? If people are going to leave anyway, I might as well make some money. And so that, I think it's just Econ 101, that everyone benefits from trade. And we see the industry splitting into selling currency, redeeming currency, and minting currency. And clearly what we're doing is minting the currency. That's our strength. And there'll be huge tariffs. It'll be really inefficient to go from one to the other. But even 90% loss is better than 100% loss. Anyway, so CoinForge lets Zynga needs a coin, Ubisoft needs a coin, EA needs coins. They can launch their own coins based on our patent pending technology for this arcade token on the blockchain. And you were alluding to, like, the real problem is that when you understand the sausage of the video game industry, you start to realize there's multiple IP owners, there's multiple developers that do them, there's front end and back end deals. So, like, if you're going to allow Madden 20 to be used in Madden 21, you need to really be able to track that properly. And then internally, even the divisions, who gets paid? If it's bought in one and sold in the other one, how do I, recognize the revenue attribution? So it's a really thorny problem that we're, that we're helping them solve.
And what's your kind of timescale for that?
I think we'll probably be doing some pilots this year. That's what I'll say. We have a bunch of people who are eager to do it. We're looking for the right partner.
Okay, cool. Good, excellent. Well, I think I think that's all the questions I had. It's great to talk to you and see how the project has developed. It's always high concept. High concept I think are very great because they kind of encapsulate something. They're like the elevator pitch. Everyone sort of understands it, and then the tricky part is then working out how you take that into the real world. And I guess your analogy was good there. I kind of think often blockchain doesn't need to be, and often clearly isn't, the perfect solution. It just needs to be somewhat better than what we've already got. And I think what you're saying there with the vision is the vision of one token to run everything may happen, but that's going to be a fairly long way off. But just something that will allow some level of interoperability is clearly going to be a massive improvement. So,
and I'll just end with one little anecdote, because I know if you go from this high level, like, I'll tell you what ground reality is. I was up at 6:30 in the morning talking with the tech team because we thought we gotten spammed. We had tens of thousands of signups and all the events, and the streamers were telling us that they hadn't even started to promote them yet, so they had no idea like where all these people were coming from. And my son came in the room to try to talk to me. I told him he had to leave because like we were fighting this fire and we didn't know we didn't know what was happening. And so then he texted me, and it was he was forwarding me a screenshot from his friend who had woken up in the morning, and the first thing he saw on TikTok was one of like the highlights from one of our events about Booga winning, and the other professionals were commenting in the TikTok about how they weren't invited and how butthurt they were about that. And he figured it out. It's like we were actually just getting TikTok, and it was not a bot attack. It was for real. But that was like, I mean, that is like a kid's like reality. It's like people see it on TikTok, their friends are texting people, and you're starting to have that impact that you're looking for.
Great, excellent. That's a really good story, isn't it? Yeah, just the channels of virality now is just so overwhelming, aren't they? That it literally looks like a DOS attack.
TikTok is amazing. TikTok is absolutely amazing.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Mike. That was really good. And maybe we can come back when the next part of the vision is a bit more fleshed out. That would be cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And thanks to you for watching, and those of you who are listening on the podcast. Thanks very much for coming back. Every week we are talking to people who are building out this crazy new world of blockchain games, everything to play for, lots of crazy stuff. And I think it's going to make the games industry a whole lot better, both for the gamers and for the games companies as well. So hopefully you stick with us. Please subscribe through the usual podcast channels or on YouTube, that'd be great to have you along for the ride. But thanks for listening, and see you again next week.